Welcome, ladies and gents, and thank you so much for watching. We're back at this bobber rebuild. We're trying to make some good progress on it today. We're hoping to get the front wheel, the front brakes, and maybe the gas tank on. Sounds easy enough, but you just never know what could go wrong. But let's jump right in and see what we can tear up. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to try to get this front wheel on, as well as this whole, I guess we'll call it the brake system on, with the goofy lines that I was too lazy and too cheap to replace. I think it'll work though. You remember we dropped these tubes to about hereage to get all that off. Now we just took the tubes out. It's a lot easier that way. If you ever remove them, all you've got is the pinch bolts on the side. Slide them out. Just remember you got about 10 ounces roughly of fluid in each one, so just be careful. They shouldn't leak, but stand them up if you do that. But we're going to lift this up first and get it in position so we can then put the tubes back on. We got to get the tubes leveled out properly, and then we'll get the front wheel on. And hopefully this thing, because it's already looking great. Man, I'm digging it. I think when we get this front wheel on, it's going to make a difference. But let's get to it and let's see what we can tear up. Alrighty, here we go. Let's see if I can. Boy, this would be a lot easier. I've done this plenty of times on single caliper systems. It's easy, but this is kind of like, this is like a dog trying to pick up two chew toys at the same time. That one and that one. All right, and then this is gonna here. Okay, so this has to wrap. Boy, this is crazy. All right, let's see here. How do I do this? Oh boy. Well, I took it off. Oh Lord, there we go. There we go. Oh my gosh, did we do it? And there is a nut under here, or a bolt, excuse me. It holds this in place. At least get that started. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Success. Alrighty, I think that is a win. And for this lever, now these wires are pretty tight down in here. And remember, you have a brake light switch. Watch, I'll snap it after I say that. Now, what is the problemo here? Going in rather smooth. These things can be, sometimes, these things can be funny. And I don't mean ha-ha funny. This is also a good time to explain why you would want to put the gas tank on last, even though we had to get another one. Which, by the way, that tank has been repainted. And it looks as good as the first one, if not better. But you don't want to drop anything. Trust me, I've done it before. Well, I think we're pretty dang good, ladies and gents. I think that is going to work. I need to tighten this up a little bit. But we will get all our controls adjusted to where we want them down the road. I just want to keep that from moving so easy right now. But one thing to be careful of when you get this fresh paint, I screwed up on this side over here, and I should have known better. And I've thought of this before. With this fresh paint on here, if you force everything way on the bars too far, then you're going to scratch down here, and then if you have to back it off, you've got scratches. That happened right here. So don't do like I did. Think about that. Start loose and then just kind of push it up. You can actually push this on too far because you'll lose this gap down here for the wire to come out, or you'll actually tighten the throttle on there too much where it won't even turn. So it's a lot of moving pieces. Get it on there loose like we're doing here, and then just start to tighten it up in different ways. All right, ladies and gents, we are going to do the wheel install, which is one of my least favorite things to do. This would be a lot easier if I had a lift. Maybe one day. Table lift. I have a jack. So I protected this slider here. I wasn't able to get rags on both because it's not enough space for the wheel. It's a tight fit. Do have some tape in there just trying to protect the rattle canister, but with this being a dual disc, it's pretty tight fit. And getting it just right can be a monumental undertaking, it seems. There we go. Let's see if we can at least resemble starting it. Oh, that's a pretty dang good start. All right. We got the axle in. Now we need to feed this through the other side and we should be in good shape. But the real question is, can we get it through all the way? I think we can. We should. Let's see, is that going to go? Let's see if we can give it some taps. All right, that's a little bit. Well, progress. I think we need to lower this. Take this out of here. I think that's holding me up. Now, let's see. That is it. Sweet. And we now have a wheel on there. What am I hitting? Oh, I'm hitting that. I'm hitting that bucket back there. But she is on. All right, we're going to get this torque down as well as the other side. It has actually been, believe it or not, about 3 or 4 hours since we put this wheel on. We kind of had a little bit of a dilemma. I will explain that here in a moment after we get this down and these calipers on. There we go. For this pinch bolt here. I should turn that over. Oh, that goes down in there like that. That's right. Those look good in there. I'm going to have to touch up a few spots on these sliders. I kind of figured as much, but they're in pretty hidden places, so it's not a big deal. Suppose you get what you pay for when you rattle can it. But it looks pretty good. There we go. And for this caliper, hopefully we got a good angle here. Alrighty, hopefully this all goes on. It should. If I knew what I was doing. Well, like I said, if I knew what I was doing. Come on, what is the freaking problem? There. These calipers, these older calipers, they work, but man, they're such an odd design. Anybody else out there think so? They're just, I don't know, they're just weird. Well, that ain't gonna work. There. Right as I say they're weird, they fix themselves. And then these bottom part is actually, you have to make sure it's lined up. Come on, there we go. Did it get it? It did. There we go. And for this fun side, come on. There we go. Oh, it's going. Thank goodness. I was worried about an alignment issue. I don't know why everything came off. I say that, and then it won't start. There we go. Thank you for behaving. And this one, Well, that's odd. It's too tight. Yeah, probably. Well, I spoke too soon, I suppose. Let's see here. All right, there we go. Good grief. Boy, I've had a field day with this thing. There. That did it. Alrighty. If we can get this to spec. Very good. Very good. And we have spinach. Well, alrighty, that took way too long. But we are looking good. We got controls up here. I got those tidied up. Not a fan of the strange brake line, but it works. It's on there. And we got wheelage on and calipers on. So after we got the wheel installed, we got to the point where we got the axle in. And I could not, for the life of me, get anything to go all the way through on the axle. Like everything was lined up. It got to the point where I actually removed both tubes, put a straight edge that I have that I know is 100% straight. There's nothing bent on the tubes, nothing wrong with the sliders, nothing wrong with the axle, the spacers, everything is to spec, it's correct. I couldn't get it in, and I sat there and I fought this thing, forever. So finally, I decided to just kind of get it as close as I could. And I actually loosened the pinch bolts on this side just a hair, just a little bit, to where I could move it a little bit and everything went in. And you saw that we got the calipers on, we got everything torqued down on the axle. There's no rubbing. You can see this. The tire does tire things. The brakes does brake things. So I don't know. I don't really know what it was hung up on, but we got it in there and that's how it came off exactly. So just goes to show you folks, you never know what could happen. Let's look on this side. It's looking pretty dang good though. And we do have a few spots up here. You might see them. Maybe, maybe not. We need to touch up, but just tiny stuff, just little stuff. So based on where I was a couple hours ago, I'll call this a win, but we are looking good. Let's see if I can get a good shot from here. Looking pretty good, pretty snazzy. And then over here, same thing. I'm looking forward to getting this thing out. So we're gonna now clean all this up. I need to probably do some touch-up paint. But the next step after this, I do believe, is gonna be the gas tank, most likely. And then after that, of course, the rear wheel, and then we'll just get this thing down on the ground. And that gas tank is painted. We got it in, and it looks great, and it's going to go on phenomenal. And we can get this wire tucked away. But man, we're looking good. She's coming around, folks. She's coming around. Well, folks, we are moving on to the gas tank. This thing sure is looking not too bad for rattle can. I know a lot of people won't like that rattle can, but you know what? What we're doing to get this thing on the road as budget as possible. I'm trying to show here. We will get the new petcock on once we get this on the bike. That makes it easier. Got our grommets already. This is the second tank, so if you remember, the first one had so much rust, and I know there's ways to get all that rust out. We could have kept at it and done the sealer and all that, but we just decided these tanks are pretty affordable for these Sportsters, and plus, this one's a little narrower. The other one had a little bit of width to it. This is going to look better on it. But I'm looking forward to seeing how this is going to be on the bike. And for prep work, all we got is some rags. Just throw you some stuff on the rocker boxes and all that kind of stuff. And then for the ignition part, this is kind of a pain on these Sportsters because this bracket with your ignition switch and your coil and all that, it has to actually go over like this, the fuel tank. For some reason, this one's bent in a little, and I don't want to go mess with it. I don't want to get a torch on it or anything like that to bend it. So we're just going to kind of manhandle it in there and see if it'll work. Well, let's get it on. I want to see how this thing looks. I'm looking forward to it. Alrighty. One thing I hate about doing this with nicer stuff is you got to be careful. Well, you should. Doesn't mean you have to. All right, that went on sort of good. All right, let's see if we can get, I wonder if it'd be easier from this side, probably. There we go. I just hope this ain't a replay of the front wheel that took me like 4 hours for some reason. All right, so I get these wires on down here. Well, now those cables are gonna have to go. Oh, they're caught right there. Yeah, there we go. There. Prep work. So you see this has to go down over this tube right there, and this has to go over it. Easier said than done. So we're going to try to manhandle that as best as possible and see if we can get this started. All right, so let's see if we can get something in here. Kind of bring these together after we manhandled them. All the way through. And for my next trick, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this bolt. Yes, this is the cheap hardware that came with the tank. I'm going to take this bolt and just push it through with this screwdriver, and it should go all the way through. That's the theory, folks. Let's see what happens here. Yeah, there we go. Are we there? Are we there? We got it. Boom. Perfect. This is actually an extremely long bolt, though. Look at that. That's absurd. Okay. Well, we're going to leave this right here. I think what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and cut that, or I'm going to go see if I can find another bolt. I might have one. Let's see if we got one from the other set. Okay, so we just ended up using the old hardware. You can see here coming through. So now it's not sticking through by a foot. That's not too bad. You can see we actually cleaned it up just a little bit. We'll get the other side. One thing I did notice is this. So if you look here, you can get over here, grab now remember the tank is not tightened down yet. She's shifting. And what's happening is the mount tabs aren't completely pinched down on the frame. I could tighten it, and between the rubber mounts and everything, it should probably be fine, but I'm going to go ahead and just try to get one washer in between there. Anytime you're doing stuff like this on these bikes, folks, even if you're putting, let's say this is a 97 Sportster, even if you're putting another 97 tank on here, there's a good chance things are not going to line up perfect. It just happens. There's tolerances on these things. Some of these bikes were made a long time ago when you had even more tolerances. Check, check, check everything, especially aftermarket. For example, this tank and that hardware is literally made for this year of Sportster. Everything's stock, and you saw how far out that was sticking. That's just, it's not necessary, but we could have cut it if we had to, but fortunately we had something else. But we're going to get that shimmed up back there and get this tightened up, and then we can tidy up all those wires and see how this sucker looks. There we go. Okay, so we have, that is like extremely minor. So I'm good with that. So we got that shimmed up. Okay, we're going to leave that one just kind of loose like that. So we got our tank on. It looks fantastic, as I assumed it would. However, it didn't go without dramas. So we do have a bit of a problem. So, been fighting this for quite a while. You can't see it right here because it's not tightened down. This side actually needs to go up. I'm sorry, it's too far down. And I have been through every piece of hardware that I own to try to do everything to shim, level. I've even messed with these tabs a little bit, which is kind of cringeworthy. Thought about bending or moving those, but she's still not level, and I do not like that. The tank mounts perfectly fine. Everything's going to flow fine. I just don't want this. We just don't want this to be, you don't want it to be off-centered. And you can see it right there. It's just a hair off-centered. So here's what we're going to do. And I don't know if this is the right thing or not. We're going to get one of those tank lifts. You can see we don't have the bracket yet put on for the, whatchamacallit, the ignition and all that. Or the coil, excuse me, and the ignition switch. We're going to get a tank lift. And we're going to get the kind that has two separate brackets instead of one that goes over right here. Bracket right here and the other side. My theory is I can use those brackets to adjust, meaning I manipulate with the grinder or drill or whatever I have to do to move this mount point down a hair. Now, here's where you got to be careful. You do not want to tweak the mounts. You don't want to force the tank in there and force your bolt through. I think these tabs on this tank are off just a hair, and they're off enough that it just shows. So we're going to try that. If we're successful, then not only will we have a centered tank, which it's pretty close now, but we'll have a cooler look. So that'll lift the tank up. So unfortunately, it's going to be a few days before that shows up, and we're going to give it a whirl. But we will try. Yes, I could make one, but I found something for $10. I don't think I can even make it for $10. We'll see if it's decent enough quality. But that is a shame. But I'll tell you what, though, it sure does look good, though. You think of where this thing was before with these bars and everything. I mean, it's looking good. But we're going to figure this out, and we're going to make it look good. So we will get back with you guys once we get those parts in. We're going to get this thing, hopefully, mounted up correctly. Well, ladies and gents, we got an update on this tank. Nope, no brackets yet. We don't have anything to work on it, but we did figure out why it's not bolting up centered, and it's still blowing my mind, but it's good that we know why. I want to show you guys real quick and then talk about some of the things we're going to try to do to fix it. Hopefully, I don't know. We'll see. So we started looking at the mounts on the actual frame on this sucker, and we started to notice some things. So for those of you that don't know, there's literally a tube that's welded into the frame here and here, and you can actually see this one right here, where basically the bolt just goes through and through all the way, mounts through both sides of the tank. Same thing here. These are going to be useful for something in just a second, so bear with me. And then there's the front mounts. It sits on there, and then your coil and your ignition or your ignition switch mount right up there as well in the bracket. Looking at it from here, if you can get your eyes on, we'll do this side first, this bar. See, there's a bar right in there that's bolted on that front mount, and then you can see the other one just barely sticking out. It's hard to see, but if you've got a good eye, you can tell that they are both this way. They're crooked. Now, if we look at an actual bolt or a mount for a tank on the front, it should sit, it should be parallel with that. It should be basically centered on the bike. What it's doing right now is it is off. And it is off so much that when you mount the tank, it just looks bad. So the weld itself, so here's what we kind of noticed. We started looking at the weld, and I don't think this is factory. There's no way this is factory. So it does look like somebody else has welded this, but the weld looks good. There's no cracks, nothing like that. And as a matter of fact, the rest of the bike is fine. I mean, it goes down the road perfect. We've inspected everything. Everything looks good. But we did have some paint in this area, and we know that this looks like a strange weld. And also, this mount right here for the coil, if you look at it, she's a little crooked. And it was giving me fits earlier on whenever we were trying to get the old tank, which is that one, mounted up. So we have come to the conclusion, again, this is just my assumption, I have no evidence of this. This bike was dropped. The tank was hit somehow, which would explain why there's an aftermarket tank, maybe the bars as well, which is why we got these cool Z bars. And I think somebody welded that up and they just didn't get it straight. And since this bike was in pieces in a barn, I don't think anybody ever noticed it off. That is just my theory. But again, everything else on it looks great. We're still going to do the adjustability on the brackets. Is that the right thing to do? Heck no, that's not the right thing. The right thing to do would be to re-weld that. I probably could. I've got decent enough MIG welding skills, but I'm just not going to screw with it. We're not going to get into that because we're confident we can get this tank level. But man, that is so frustrating that did like that. We're going to do our best to get it lined up. I don't know what type of jiu-jitsu that I'm going to have to do to get that freaking tank centered. I have a feeling it's going to be a doozy, but I think we'll get enough adjustability to make it happen. We got these little brackets in, and they are literally let's be honest, they're the cheapest thing on the internet you can get, which means these are going to come back to haunt me, but that's fine. I think these are going to work, though. They do have a logo. It's supposed to be like an iron cross. Looks more like a Chevrolet bow tie to me, if you ask me. But Anyway, I think these are going to work. So what we're going to do is we're going to put these on this tank, first of all, to get them just kind of started. We're going to mock this tank up first. And the idea is these will be mounted somewhat like this. And then on the bottom part here, we're actually going to shave off some material to lift this side up. And then we're going to move this side down. So as we know, we'll use the wrench as a guide. As we know, the front mount is off, but the rear mount is not. So in theory, we're straightening the tank up, but we're going to see. We're going to find out. But I do think these are going to work well. These are some junk fasteners on there. We're not going to use this. We're going to put nylocks and some better bolts on there, but we're going to start with that. So we're going to get those on. What this is going to be, folks, is a back and forth. So we're going to mount it up, do a little filing, mount it up again, and we're just going to keep doing that till we get where we want. You don't want to overdo it. There's no need to go in here and over drill these or get a grinder to them. Just take a file, just put it in the vise, and it's a lot cleaner. You don't have stuff all over the place. Well, let's get these mounted up and get this tank on there. And what you don't want to do, or what I don't want to do, is I don't want to tighten these too much. I just want to get them kind of started so we can line it up. The beauty of what I'm setting up here by using a hex head bolt instead of what it came with is it allows you to get a wrench down in to tighten it when it's on the bike. We are going to have to do some bolt cutting as well, just because I refuse to go buy expensive fasteners when I've got stuff I can use. All right. All right, so we got the tank on. You see it went pretty easy. There's our little brackets, lifting it up, and it looks pretty dang good. Look at it over here, the way it looks. But here is our dilemma. I don't even think I have to say what the problem is if you just look at the top of that riser clamp. That, my friends, is no good at all. So this side's going to, well, if I get my finger right, this side's going to come up, and this side's got to go down. And as I mentioned, we're just going to grind in here because this is off. That is a shame, but I think it's going to work. So all we're going to do, and this is probably take, I don't know, 762.39 out of maybe 1,000. So what we'll do, we'll just keep taking it off, grinding some, mocking it back up, take it off, grind it some, mock it back up until we're happy with it. And then down here, you can see, you can actually get to those bolts on either side of the tank. So having right in here, having that hex head allows me to get a 1/2 inch wrench down in there. So it works very perfectly, and the tank is nice and stout. The only thing left to do now is to get this apart and start doing some grinding. So all we need now is a simple file, our bracket, and a lot of free time. And you can do this, you could drill this out. You could take if you had a small die grinder, Dremel or something in here. I just don't want to take too much material off. I'd rather do it this way. Just my preference. This one's already got a little more adjustability in it just by doing that. So we'll work on this one a little bit, and this is probably where we're going to start. And I know a lot of folks are probably saying, just re-weld it and do it right. But you got to remember, there's a lot of people that don't have the ability or the access to get stuff like that fixed. There may be people chopping on these bikes in other countries that they just deal with what they got. That is the whole point, folks. All right, we got them both oblonged a little bit. So this one right here will go down, and this one will go, let's see here. This one will go up. This one will go down. No, not like that. You get it. They'll move like that, which is good. After our first grind on those brackets, you can see we're still off, but we're better. See, look at that. That made quite the difference. And one thing to point out too, since we're lifting the tank, this being out of alignment is actually going to exaggerate this more by lifting it. However, it's also going to exaggerate it more when we adjust it. But that actually fell right into place and tightened just like that. There was no need. You don't have to push it or nothing. So just a little more, not even as much as we just took, maybe half of it. And I think we're going to just about be there. All right, ladies and gents, so we did some more grinding on these parts for this tank. And here's the good news. There's some good news and not some bad news, but just something we are going to redo yet again on this tank. So it'll set level. So like you take the brackets, you drop it on the bike, and it literally just sets in place where it needs to be. And that's exactly what you want. Here's the problem. So I took a chance and bought these cheapo pieces of metal brackets. And I think they work. I think they're fine. With the adjustment that I'm doing on grinding, it's becoming more than I thought it was going to be. And I don't like how close it's getting to this edge. And I do not like how close it's getting to this middle Iron Cross / Chevrolet logo in the middle. I don't get it. So here's what we're going to do. We know that we can get it level now. I can get this over here. So we got another piece of steel. So this steel is about 3/16 inch thick, whereas this is an 1/8, so we're already thicker. These are actually a little less than an 1/8 because I think it's just all metric numbers. And we're also going to cut this steel to be just a little bit longer on the ends. So after we drill it, we'll have some more variability room without removing too much material. This might be overkill, but we're going to go ahead and do this. We know it's going to mount straight. We know it's going to mount perfect. We're just going to use something a little stronger. So we'll start on that. I'm not going to film every bit of that because we're already a lot in on this tank, but I just wanted to show you guys this stuff is going to happen. You start mixing aftermarket tank, aftermarket parts, aftermarket hardware, then you got a frame that's already been messed on before. This is going to happen. So you just got to use whatever method you can to get it right. This is still not the right way to do this. However, this is going to work and it's going to be secure and strong. That's what we're going for. But let's get right to that. Well, ladies and gents, we're going to go ahead and wrap this video up here. It certainly has not been without drama. Those gas tank mounts, they tested on me. When I finally figured out what it was, I actually felt kind of relieved that it wasn't my mistake, but it was ours to fix. So it was definitely a head scratcher moment. If you guys have had anything similar happen, put them in the comments. I'd love to read about it, whether it's a bike or a car or whatever it could be. It's just interesting to learn this kind of stuff. And, it kind of tells you the history of these things. You just never know sometimes what they've been through. But we will be back very soon to finish this bike up. Hopefully, I'm going to say it again. What we have left to do should not be that difficult, but you know what? That doesn't mean things won't happen. But our goal is to get it back together in the next video and hopefully fire it off so we can actually hear it run after we've rebuilt it, just to see if we got everything back the way it's supposed to. But I thank you guys so much for watching. Please hit that subscribe button. Also, I'm going to put in the description below a link to our No Rules Life page. We got some cool content on there, so go check that out if you can. And as always, we will chat with you folks next time.